personally, I think it's unfair. These kids worked hard for these moments, right? Long summer practices, two a days, weight room, long days in the weight room, in a hot weight room. And these kids were pushed and held accountable and disciplined if they missed the practice, if they missed weight training, if they slacked off in practice, if they got in a little trouble off the field. They were held accountable by those two very men who were in the middle of the field rolling around like some kids.
It's your boy Verse, and this is Open Mike with OTR Mike.
Yeah.
Yo, what's up? It's your boy OTR Mike, and let me welcome you to Open Mike with yours truly. Look, man, this is the show where the mic is open for any discussion, no matter what it is, who it is, or where it is. That's that platform we creating over here. So, man, look, let me thank y'all right now for being here. If you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on the audio platform, I appreciate you. Let me say thank you to all the early supporters, man. I say a little bit of I speak on my fright of being a solo podcaster now, just about on every episode, and I'm probably going to continue until I get comfortable, if I ever get comfortable, right? But the early support has been amazing. I appreciate you guys already. Look, it makes it a little easier seeing some of the support out there. But it's a task, man, and I appreciate all of the advice, all the support, all the well wishes from everybody out there. Keep up, keeping on with your boy. All right, look, I don't plan to be before you long today. Got a short episode, hopefully. But I wanted to touch on another topic that kind of hit me, like kind of like the Kanye episode I did. It's just something that was bothering me, and I had to touch on it. And this one is local, right? Local to the Baltimore, Maryland area. I wanted to touch on a local football rivalry. You may or may not have heard of this story that I'm about to touch on if you are outside of the Maryland area. But I have seen it on some national news publications. So it's a good chance you have heard about this. So there was a situation at a Baltimore City public school high school football game. And those two high schools are Baltimore City College and Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, also known as City and Poly for those who are local, right? And look, man, this rivalry between these two teams is, it's one of the oldest rivalries, not just in the state of Maryland, in the United States, right? The City Poly rivalry is the oldest American football rivalry in Maryland and one of the oldest public school rivalries in the U.S. And with that being said, with it being one of the oldest in the U.S., I think it's the third oldest public school rivalry in the U.S. So, just to give you a little background on how deep this rivalry and how long it's been going on, I think this past matchup was the 133rd matchup, and I think the first game on record happened in like 1889. So yeah, this rivalry has been going on for a long time. And it draws big crowds. I think lately, I'm not for sure if they continue to do it or have done it, but I'm not even sure if this past game was here. But um, lately they have hosted the game at Morgan State or Morgan University, um, just because it draws that type of crowd. That's just how big this rivalry is. But unfortunately, this time, this game, the 133rd game, will unfortunately go down as it'll never be forgotten. Um, and unfortunately, it's for all the wrong reasons. Bear with me. I'm gonna play a clip for you to kind of give you more of the situation and what exactly is going on. For those of you who are watching, watch the video. And for those of you who are listening, I'm about to play a video explaining a little more in depth of what happened. And also, you will hear the voice of city leadership, the mayor and the superintendent of Baltimore City Schools. So for those listening, if you can hear me over the audio, a fight breaks out at the end of the game.
There was an unfortunate, you can call it melee interaction, but it was widespread, and we're real clear about conduct and what their repercussions for that are. It's unfortunate. I don't think it represents the best of the two teams or the two coaching staffs.
It's the right call. We know, those young people know, especially at those institutions that have such a rich history of having a rivalry, one of the fiercest rivalries in this country when it comes to high school football, but it's always been done with dignity and respect. It's unfortunate for those young people, especially if they're in their senior year, but consequences have action. It's a learning example for these young people, and it's just, we can't have that kind of behavior, especially when you have so many people, 7,000 people coming out to a college campus to see you play. You cannot have that kind of behavior, especially when you understand the dignity and respect that your schools and your alum always treat each other.
I should have explained what they're talking about. Let me go back. So for those listening, um, after the game, uh, a fight broke out, and in the video you see two coaches when they typically meeting half midfield to shake up at the end of the game. It turned into a scuffle. Um, and what you hear from the city officials, one being the CEO, Baltimore City Schools, I should have said, not superintendent, but basically the same thing, and Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott, um, basically saying they support the decision. Now, that decision that they are talking about is that both teams have been disqualified from the state playoffs. Okay. And as you can hear, they both said they support the decision for numerous reasons. And initial reports from this story also said that the kids were fighting. Right now in the video, you just see the two coaches. You see the kids kind of huddling around or grabbing around, trying to pull their coaches. It looks like off of one another, but in the video, you see two coaches tussling. One kind of slaps the other coach, and then it becomes a wrestling match. And then obviously the players surround, other people surround, and it just becomes, I guess, a melee, as the CEO described it. But initial reports following the situation also said that the kids were fighting. And if you listen to both of their statements, but mainly Brandon Scott, he kind of insinuates that, the players know better. it to me, like it just sounds like he's saying the players had involvement in the situation as well. And not soon after that, there were a lot of people who was at the game, parents who came out to refute those claims. They're saying that the players weren't fighting. It was just solely coaches. And people were going back and forth online about the situation, quickly going at the players and saying they know better. It's just a mess, right? Um, Even though the situation started with the coaches. Now, mind you, these are heated rivalries. Like I said, 33 years of rivalry here. And of course they're heated, right? And these teams know, they know, just like the mayor said, they know the magnitude of the rivalry. So it's a lot of trash talking, right? It's a lot of back and forth, a lot of jawing. I'm sure the game gets heated. Um, and that's just not anything new, right? That's that's what happened all of those years, I'm sure, right? So were some of the kids probably going back and forth on things? I am sure. Um, but there was another angle of the footage of the fight that showed a better perspective from the kids situation or the kids side of it. So let me play that for you.
As time expires, that's the end of the fourth quarter. For the final score, Baltimore City College 24, Baltimore Polytechnic 16. Fans,
So again, for those who are listening, what you see is a clip of the players shaking up, um, hugging. You know, you see players from one of the team going up to the team that lost, quote unquote lost, and consoling the players and hugging it out and dapping up. And you see one particular player sitting on the ground in disgust or hurt because he lost, and then the other player from the opposite team going over to pick him up and hugging him and dapping him up. And then as that happens, the fight breaks out, and you can see the players kind of looking like, "Do you see this? What's going on here?" The kids were clearly showing sportsmanship, and you know, I feel like this angle clearly dispels the talk of the kids being involved in this fight. So it was solely the coaches. And that's what brings me to this episode, right? Because um the players are being penalized, right? The players had to forfeit, the teams had to forfeit or were disqualified from the state championship or state playoffs. So the question is, I mean, is that fair that these kids are disqualified because of the actions of two coaches, two grown men? Personally, I think it's unfair. Now I understand that there's consequences, just like the CEO and the mayor spoke on. There are consequences in certain actions, but these things, the situation came from two people who are supposed to be setting examples for the kids, like the coaches, right? These kids worked hard for these moments, right? Long summer practices, two a days, weight room, long days in the weight room, in a hot weight room. And these kids were pushed and held accountable and disciplined if they missed the practice. if they miss weight training, if they slacked off in practice, if they got in a little trouble off the field, they were held accountable by those two very men who were in the middle of the field rolling around like some kids. So, again, the question is it fair? Is the punishment fair? Should the kids be penalized like they are? Now, of course, I want you guys' opinion. So, though wherever you watching this or listening, please, please, or even hit me on social media and give me your thoughts, because I want to hear how people feel about this, right? Um, but like I said, I think it is unfair to the kids. Um, you know, what about the seniors? What about the seniors whose last high school game ended like that? What about the seniors who won't be blessed with the opportunity to play on the next level? So what if that was their last football game? Period. Not just the seniors who senior last game ended that way, season shortened that way, but they get to go and play college ball. But what about the kids that won't play football again? What about those kids? I just think it's crazy that um, the season was disqualified for both of these teams off of two coaches, the two leaders of these teams. The discipline, I feel like, should be held on those. Right now, there were coaches. It really was two main coaches. Now, you see in the video other coaches. They look like I said, a melee of coaches, but you could tell that the other coaches were trying to hold or diffuse the situation. So, and then there's enough. I just showed two angles of the fight. There's enough video floating around to show that the kids weren't fighting each other. It's enough. So, to me, I'm not Matlocking anybody, but I just pinpointed who the two in this situation is that caused it, and it would be very easy to pinpoint those two and to discipline those two. That's why you have coaching staffs, because if a coach is ejected, a coach can't gets ill, a coach just can't, for whatever reason, they can't coach, the head coach can't coach the game. You have somebody to step up and take his place. So I'm sure rather than penalizing these kids, you could very well penalize those two coaches, those two so-called leaders, and let these kids play. It just bothers me, man. It just bothers me because, you know, as a former coach myself, right? You know, I know that I challenged my kids, right? I challenged my kids to be great student athletes, but I challenged them to be even better off the field or off the court. And I'm sure those coaches did the same. Like that's typical coach talk, right? That's you hold your players accountable just to know how to, one of the main things is just to know how to conduct themselves when they're in public, when they're in school, and then when they're on the field. You expect that. So I feel comfortable in saying that every coach that's listening, and even those two coaches that were involved in that, did the same thing. I'm sure they held those kids accountable for their actions. Especially if they got into a fight or something. Like I said, as a former coach, if one of my boys, if I hear that they got into a fight in school, they ain't play. And I didn't care how good they were. I didn't care if they were my best player or not. That's just the accountability that I held them to. That's the standard that I held them to. So I don't know, man. This bothers me. You know, I think city leadership dropped the ball on this. But most importantly, the coaches should be ashamed of themselves, because at the end of the day, they caused this. And if it was an issue between the two coaches, you didn't care for each other, or you didn't like how something happened on the field, or sometimes you run into these situations where you feel like one coach is trying to stick it to you, run up the score, or telling their players to be dirty or whatever, right? There's ways to discuss that. There's ways to you know handle it other than throwing some punches, right? Like, how about all right, give the half dap. I'd rather you give the half fake dap, like the guy did Deion Sanders. Like that, I believe it wasn't Georgia State, I think, or was it Grambling? It wasn't Grambling. No, it was oh man, the name is slipping me, but he is the son of the famous coach from Grambling. But anyway, like he did Deion Sanders, right? The fake dap, but don't try to bro hug me. Don't we're not gonna do that. But to fight in the middle of the field with all of those kids, all of those parents, everybody watching, like the mayor says, 7,000 people in the stands, and the two coaches got into a fight. That's wild. That's wild to me. That's wild to me. I mean, I honestly feel like it is obvious. They let those kids down, man. They let them down by not living up to the very standards that they set for them, that they expect them to live by. Again, this is just coach talk. Every coach has standards that they set for their team and their players to follow. So it's ridiculous. And I think all around the ball was dropped. Again, I understand city leadership is doing, I guess, what they feel the rules are. They're following the rules that are set in place. But I think they can make an exception for this by just watching the two clips that I sent them, that I played. I'm sorry. And for those who are watching, man, tag the city leadership in here so they can see. Send it to them so they can see the two clips that I played. That shows that the kids understand the rivalry, and they understand that they worked very, very hard to get to that point. So taking it from them, I think, is a bit much. But at the end of the day, right? Even with city leadership making their ruling or supporting it, the coaches, they messed this up. Grown men, mentors, messed this up. So look, leave me your thoughts on this situation. Research it a little more. If you have questions, or just look into it and from your own perspective, let me know what you see and what you think about the situation, and if the penalty was too harsh, if the penalty should have just been put on the player, on the coaches, or is it right to penalize the entire team? Because there are some people out here that believe we are one team, right? So it's like that. The mindset of, one player slacking off in practice, everybody's running, right? You penalize everybody because of that one player, and you make that an example. So it's that kind of, people have that kind of mindset when it comes to this. Hey, the coaches are a part of the team, so everybody does the penalty or faces the penalty, including the coaches, including the players. I don't so much agree with that in this situation. But that's the show, man. Look, I said I wasn't gonna be here before you long. Another solo episode. I made it through another one. Yeah, man, it's tough. It's tough talking to myself, man. I got, let me see over there. I got Kobe and Nipsey over there keeping me company. Rest in peace to them. Yeah. Look, follow your boy on social media on TikTok and Twitter at OTR_Mike, on Instagram at OTR Mike _. I appreciate you guys for being here. I appreciate you guys for the support. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Also, give your boy 5-star rating, man, on your favorite podcast platforms. I'm now there. So it's no excuse. You should be able to find Open Mic with OTR Mike on all your podcast streaming platforms. So check your boy out. Keep coming back, man. I'll be back next week with something else for you. Not sure what it is yet, because some of these things are just hitting me, like this situation, and it kind of trumps whatever else I had in motion. So we'll see what we got next week. But yeah, one more thing. If you notice, I didn't mention a winner of this game, because there was a team that won by the score standards, but I didn't mention a winner because unfortunately both teams lost, and they lost because of the actions of grown men and men who are supposed to be mentors and men who are supposed to be positive role models. So, yeah, I'm out. Think on that one. Peace.